Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are once again talking about Star Wars Celebration Orlando 2017. No longer going by numbers, we're just going by cities. We're hoping for Star Wars Phoenix sometime in the future, so I don't have to travel anywhere if I make it in the show. Tonight, we are very pleased. We have William O'Neill with us today. Let me bring William in so we can show him off. There he is.
Hello, hello.
William, how are you, buddy?
I'm very good, thank you.
I forgot to check where you are actually calling in from. Are we calling late? Where are we at?
It is around 8:36. I am
Oh,
in Studio City, Los Angeles.
excellent, because I pretend that I'm in a studio here. So,
I'm in a whole city. That'll be inserted later in post.
yes, in post. We'll take care of that in the post. The
Yeah.
worst phrase ever used in Hollywood, right? Well, we've had you. We've invited you here to be on the show to talk about your latest entry into the Star Wars Celebration art show.
Yes.
Now, let's see. Oh my goodness. How many celebrations is this? Is this five
This is
celebrations?
this is it's I guess an anniversary. Well, it will be the 10 years since I did my first one,
Right?
which is actually here in LA, and it's my fifth one.
Wait a
So it's like
second. 10 years, that means that you were at the Star Wars celebration for the 30th anniversary. Is that what it was when they were doing the big thing for? Because this
yeah,
year's the 40th anniversary, so 10 years ago would have been 30, and that was a big deal for A New Hope, and that
yes.
that launched. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
that was
That's
my first one.
awesome. Well, let's talk about a little bit about the piece that you have for this show. It's titled "For Luck." Um,
Yes.
so I have it up on the screen right now with you, and it's a very tall piece, or it appears
Yeah.
to be on. And when I'm trying to scale it, it's very it's very vertical, and the screen is very horizontal. So we'll do some zooming in here in a little bit. Tell us about sort of like the thought process behind this piece, and was this one you sort of like a celebration for the 40th, or do you have a series going with some of your previous prints, or how did you land on this piece in particular?
Well, when I got the opportunity to pitch another piece, I did a whole bunch of different doodles and things like that. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. That one's good. I made a series of them.
A
Um,
series of the doodles.
yeah, series of doodles. And then I went with this one because I definitely wanted to do something for being the 40th anniversary. Um, and the reason why it's so long is
Right.
when I came up with this idea, I wanted to really sell the concept of it being an infinite, you know, thing that they are going over, really sell the risk of what they're going over. So that's
Right.
why it's like a long piece to really sell the height of it and the danger and the peril of it. Which films are like in widescreen, so it's often difficult to like
To get that same feel.
right unless you're like staring straight down as opposed to
Right.
this kind of thing. So this gave me an opportunity to do sort of a straight down sort of thing to sell the idea of height and danger.
That's
Because
awesome.
if there's one thing I've learned from Star Wars and filmmaking is height equals drama. It's a storytelling trope I've learned from Star Wars.
Well,
If you're having tea, boring. If you're having tea on the side of a cliff,
excitement,
infinitely more exciting.
danger.
Yes.
There's something that I've seen going around on the internet. They say that the best way to spice up a story is the second line of the story is, and then the murders began. So
Yes.
take any opening line and then just add, and then the murders began, and you get the same sort of drama, I guess.
Yes. And
So
then on the cliff.
yes. Now, this scene right here, we have Luke helping Leia escape from the Death Star prison. Not, yeah, Death Star prison. They're
Yeah.
about to swing across, and Leia kisses him and says, "For luck."
Yes.
Um, Now, it's really kind of fun. Let me go back to your piece here. The scene that this is exactly as not it, it's better than I remember it because it adds that sense of suspense with the height. But having Leia, she really curled into Luke like she was afraid. Was that actually Mark and Carrie that did this stunt? Do you remember that? Or was that stunt people that performed on this scene?
From what
I
I've
don't
been
remember.
from what I've been told and things I've seen, they did it in one tank. It was Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. They were about 30 feet off the ground. so it was risky, and they
Right.
did it in one take, and yeah, and apparently Carrie Fisher was terrified, and so she and the
Look
research
at
of
that again.
images and stuff I found like that. Yeah, she's clinging on to Mark for dear life.
Right. That's
So
wonderful.
yeah, which I actually think adds a little bit of character to her because she's not just heroic and stoic. There is a little bit of fear in there too, which I think adds an element of realness and personality to any character. Frankly, if you they're not always so heroic and stoic, there's just a
Right.
hint of fear. This is going to
Well,
be a risk. Here we go.
and I think that that's what makes characters characters, and it makes them sort of like relatable because we all have a certain sense of fear in the things we do. We're not always a hero. We may have heroic moments, and it's the thing I love about the writing in Star Wars, and especially the character of Indiana Jones, is
Yeah,
because there's this. Uh, falli- Fallibility.
probability. Yeah,
Yeah, so he gets hit.
Not invulnerability. The opposite of it.
Vulnerability. Yeah, he gets knocked down, he gets knocked and beat up, and I love that.
Yeah.
And now, let's talk a little bit. So we've established that this is a very long piece, but what is the actual dimensions of the art print?
Oh,
Do you have
I knew
that
you
one?
were going to ask me that. I completely forgot.
Well, I'll come. We can come back to that one in
It's
a
on the
second.
website where it's being sold on the.
Right, and that's the other thing. You look that up real quick, and I want to give a shout out for that as well. All of these art pieces are currently available online for pre-sale, and I've said this in other videos, and I'll say it every single time. What we need to recognize is that the pre-sale helps to get the artist a little bit more of a sense of sort of like comfort and security because you
Yeah.
go into the show knowing that you've sold X amount of prints that'll cover so much of your expenses, and then you sell some more and hey, wow, I broke even. People don't sort of like recognize that this is work,
Yeah. It's
and,
12 by 24.
12 by 24. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my very first Star Wars print, which was it was almost 10 years ago, is 12 by 24. And what I did was I looked at the piece. I took a screenshot of the CinemaScope screen, and I used that as a reference for my inches, and then added a black bar on the top and the bottom to flush that out, so it would be a 1:2 exact ratio. So
Which was that again? Which one was that? I
the
I
first.
remember doing a couple of
Yeah, the first one was Han and Greedo, and it's sorry about the mess, and Greedo's
Oh
just
yeah,
face
yeah, yeah. I
down.
remember that one. That was great.
Celebration
Yeah.
Japan. But yeah, but 12 by 24 is awesome, and so I can also give a little bit of shout out with that. For those people who are interested in finding a really quick and easy way to frame this artwork, there's a thing called a double album frame. And I used to buy it at Michael's all the time. You can buy it online. But what it is it's made to hold a record and a record sleeve in one display piece. And the dimensions of it are 12.5 by 25. It costs you about $20 or something. It's a slim black sort of poster frame. For $20, you can put that thing on the wall. It's ready to go. So
Sweet.
there you go. It's not that it's not that out of a size at all.
Yeah.
Now, when you were making this piece and you sort of like went through the process of sketching out some different ideas, was this your first idea, or what was it about this piece that sort of like made you land on, okay, this is the one I have to do? Were they all A New Hope, like thumbnails in the beginning?
Yeah, actually, I did mostly stuff for A New Hope. This was actually the first one, but I always like to basically just cover my bases and see, just because I'm already like convinced this is a great idea. I
Right,
want to keep researching and keep doing some other, and just in case I do suddenly get a bolt of genius, it's like, oh my god, this one's an even better idea. So I
right.
had a couple of other ideas. It was some stuff with like X-wings I was toying with, but then I just decided to stick with this one because also I think it's such an iconic moment and image, and in many ways, at least like for first generation Star Wars fans like me, it really sums up the
Oh
romanticism
yeah.
and the action and adventure and swashbuckling of
That's
so,
you stole it from me. I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. The swashbuckling. We got sword fighting. We've got wizards. We've got dark lords in
yeah,
armor, and I mean, it's all right there. I mean, it was almost a little comedy thing for a little while, where it was whatever, whatever in space, and suddenly it became better. And so this whole idea of the knights and the quest in space, it was so fresh and new, and it's wonderful. Now
Yeah,
you.
film changed me.
Oh
Was
yeah.
very, like my life was going in one direction. I was already probably going to be an artist or something like that when I figured out pretty young. But like after I saw that the next day, I was like, boom, I'm going in that direction. I was drawing TIE fighters and X-wings as best as I could.
Well,
My little sketchbook when
and
I was a little
that's
kid. The next day.
interesting to me as well because I too have always had this love of Star Wars and love of all of this, but I never saw it as sort of like I don't know how to make a job out of this, you know? And so when you saw Star Wars and you sort of changed direction and that became your focus, are you saying that Star Wars was your focus or you knew that making movies was the career for you? There's a I don't know, there's a difference there.
Um, Well, after Star Wars, I discovered science fiction in general. So then I like, I was into everything science fiction, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, whatever I can find is like I was, science in general, which
Right.
there's like a lot of like Star Trek and Star Wars did such a great job of getting kids interested in those sort of things. And I think Star Wars definitely got me excited in the whole idea of just being creative and storytelling in all mediums. From I've done comic book work, I've done storyboard work, illustration work. I write as well. So definitely, it was. I think Star Wars definitely and still does hit certain people that way. Is like, I want to do that.
Right.
That is fun. That is cool. That is
Right.
exciting. That's what I need to be doing with myself.
You know, and I'll throw this out there as well. Is my father is a civil engineer. My wife is an electrical engineer, and I have this sort of like art passion. But when my logical side hit me, um, I subconsciously sort of like reverted back to what did I learn from Star Wars, and I considered biomedical engineering as a degree so that I could build the best prosthetic possible that looks and acts like a real hand, but at the same time, it gives this sort of freedom. So I was like, yeah, it's Star Wars. It's there, but it's everywhere, and I love that. Right?
Yeah, I think that's also like when some people, it doesn't happen as much, but back in the day, like when people would dismiss science fiction in general, be it Star Wars or Star Trek, something like that, I think they were wrong because I think in many ways those type of forms of entertainment inspired people to pursue important things like
Right.
science
Right.
and other elements like that, or become an astronaut or whatever it was. So in the long run, the B films won,
Yeah.
as it were. They inspired more people.
Well, and also part of that is that we see films like Steven Spielberg is the one that did Minority Report, right?
Yeah,
So in Minority Report, he actually hired like they were consultants, but they were called futurists. And
yeah.
these are people that work to study science, trending paths, and look towards what the future may bring. And those are the people that were consulting on this film. So Star Wars, in that way, sort of had its own futurist that helped to develop this whole sense of what could be. And these visionaries are making the past, the future. It's magical.
Well, I don't know if kids today could appreciate, but Star Wars just changed all of culture in the late 70s. The 80s would have been different if Star Wars hadn't happened.
Right.
It's like Star Wars brought the whole concept of science fiction and the future into mainstream pop culture that like affected everything from movies to clothing to politics to everything in some bizarre way was influenced by Star Wars.
Now, I don't think I remember a lot of like cinnamon roll bun style, that came out of that. But yeah, it definitely
But I mean,
influenced.
what I'm not specifically that's true, but like I mean more specifically like embracing the concept of the future. The 80s were going to be the future,
Oh, right,
you know?
right,
And I think Star Wars and was part of that when because science fiction became this thing at the late 70s and thus 80s was going to be the future.
right, right. No, I totally agree. And something else that is about that is it makes me think now is Star Wars is so part of our culture. It's so part of everything that I almost feel a little bit of not resentment. I don't. I'm discovering my feelings as we talk. But I see somebody walking in the store or on the street, and they're wearing a Star Wars shirt. And it used to be I felt an immediate kinship to them, that they were the insiders, like I am. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
they were the nerds, right?
yeah,
Gentleman nerd. No, wait, 40? Is that what it is? Gentleman nerd 42.
yeah.
And so what happens there is that now Star Wars is so prevalent that I see them wearing a Star Wars shirt, and I was like, hey man, I love the Battle of Hoth. And they're like, oh, the snow planet? I'm like, dang it. I thought you were a nerd. I thought you were with me, man.
Yeah, it's become so mainstream. I've had that feeling too, where I'll see somebody in the mall or in a store or out in the real world, and I'll see them in a Star Wars shirt, and they're very kind of like, jockish or something like
Right,
that. Like,
right.
you would have handed me, or at least tried to have handed me my ass back in the '80s if I was walking around in a Star Wars shirt. Now you're wearing them.
Right,
So
right.
it's like, yeah, I appreciate that it's gone, it's so mainstream now, but there is a tinge of, it's like, this was, our little club, and
Right.
you're not really part of it, but you're like faking it. It's not fair.
Right. Yeah, totally gotcha. Now, with that, and with that sort of like exploration of our nerd, exploration of all of these things. When you get into the details of this piece, um, I'm sure you had to watch the movie over and over and over again, to make sure you got it all right. But how specific did you get into sort of like laying out your design? I don't even know what those things are hanging from the top, you know?
Yeah, I've been meaning I should do some research. If I think I refer to them as like air conditioning
Yeah.
devices. It's to keep the Death Star in a nice, comfortable 72 degrees all the time.
Right, right. Maybe
Yeah, it's
maybe
air
it's a
conditioning,
77 degrees.
machinery. I've been meaning to Wikipedia and find out what the hell those things are.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I did a lot of. I went to a couple of like those sites that have like screen grabs,
Yeah, yeah.
and I got those, and I did some, and actually the chasm that they're going to carve kind of actually has a bit of a curve to it, but I made it more of a flat kind of background, and then tilted it a little bit as well. That
Right.
also seemed to add a little energy to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was some give and take, and just that kind of art director layout kind of way.
Now tell me about the process that you went about to actually make this piece. Are you working sort of like you talked about your thumbnails, and so what do you do when you do your thumbnails? Are you just grabbing any scrap of paper and you're sketching things out, or do you have to sort of like sketch now on a tablet? I think you mentioned earlier it's still the '90s up here. I'm
Yeah,
with you. So
yeah.
what's your process for creating this piece and putting it all together?
Well, in many ways, I'm still very old school and analog.
Right.
I have sketchbooks that I do things in, and the initial ideas are literally real chicken scratch thing, more like just getting the idea down, or the basic shapes and composition of what is like there. How big should they be? Because like one of the things when I was developing was like, how big should Luke and Leia be? Because the
Yeah.
smaller they are, the more the piece sells the idea of height and peril. But if they become too small, they won't read.
Right.
And so I had to figure out how big to make them. So that's one of the things I always like doing in the sketchbook phase, was just like drawing them in different sizes and kind of like figuring that out.
And I'm moving the image around on my screen right now so that I can, show off sort of like that whole scope and zooming into it and stuff. So once you have that rough chicken scratch and you've got that taken care of, then are you scanning that? You putting it into the computer? Are you drawing it in the computer? Or are you inking it all by hand? I mean, there's some repeating elements in the background, and if you
Yeah,
have to draw those over and over again, that can be laborious.
I did not draw them. What I did was uh I combined elements, kind of like a special effects shot. It's like I drew Luke and Leia by hand separately, and then scanned them into the computer. I drew elements of the background because they're repetitive, and it's like I don't need to draw each one over
Right.
and over again. So I drew one or two of them, and then combined them in the computer onto an image, and the air conditioning thingies I also drew as a separate element, so that way I could like, if you can see me as like, should they be up here or over here a little bit, so I could move them back and forth. And also,
Right.
since Luke and Leia were also a separate element, then I could again also play with how big or small they would be.
Well, and what I like to do with some of my artwork is because I have sort of like an animation take, I build these things in layers. And it sounds like you're doing something similar so that you can adjust your composition. You can play with
Yeah.
that scale and move things around and left and right and up and down and build it. And so then I forgot. Did you say that you ink it all by hand and then scan that in, or
Yeah, I inked by hand as well.
okay?
Yeah.
Now, in addition to having your Star Wars print there available at Celebration, are you going to be part of the art show inside of where Acme has the corral? And that means that your print is available right now on Dark Ink Art, or are you outside of the show running your own booth and table?
I will be in the corral.
In the corral.
Yeah, so you can pre-order right now at Dark Ink. Yes.
And what price is your 12 by 24
It is
for luck?
40.
$40.
Yeah.
12 by 24 by 40.
Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, in addition to having this art print here, because you've been at other celebrations, I know that a lot of the artists will take and buy, and the way that this works is because the artists are granted a license to create this artwork. It's official Star Wars artwork, which means that it's part of the canon. It's part of, like, their style guide. I've had some of my art pieces show up in, like, Target and stuff like that because it was just reused. It's kind of fun.
I haven't had that happen yet.
I don't get paid anymore for that, but it just is like, oh wow, that's neat. But in addition to this piece, are you going to have some of your previous celebration pieces that you've bought back and paid that licensing on, so that you can have those for sale as well? Any sketches you're going to do? What else can people look forward to at the show there from you?
Well, I'm basically all out of the previous celebration.
Hey, that's good. That's good.
But one of the things I'm also doing, which I do it ongoing at like a lot of other shows, I even have a sample here I can hold up, is I'm doing this thing called I call novel art, which is I
Scoot
draw.
it back a little bit and to your right. There, it covers your face a little bit, but it's Leia, so she's pretty.
Yeah.
This
So
is
it's-
novel art?
Yeah, I call it novel art, and it's artwork I do directly onto the pages of the novelizations of the movies.
No way.
Yeah, so they're each one of a kind originals.
So is Leia on a page that happens to be talking about Leia? Do you go that in depth, or is it just
yeah,
a page?
definitely. Yeah, I definitely try to make the. I've done a bunch of these, and I sell them at cons.
Oh, awesome.
I'm doing WonderCon, by the way. Product drop.
Yeah.
WonderCon.
When is
next
that?
Weekend.
Okay.
The weekend of the 31st. So
Right.
yeah, I definitely line up the image to what's being described on the page. Like, let's say Return of the Jedi. If I'll do a slave Leia, it's a page where she's also in that outfit.
Right, right.
So
That's
yeah, I definitely
awesome.
combine.
It's
coordinate
such a novel idea.
that. To coin a phrase.
Now, how much those are from the original sort of like book. So those are like what? They're bigger than a 5x7.
Yeah. So I also do other ones. I'm just to promote another property. There's like, here's a Star Trek novel. So
Nice.
I take the novels, I find an image that I got an image I want to do, and then I try to, like, in this one Kirk's going Khan, so
Right,
I found the page where he does that.
Uh-huh.
I cut it out, and I drew that moment onto the page.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how much are those novel pieces?
They vary anywhere from about 70 to up to like 100.
Awesome.
I charge 100 for the title pages because there's only one per novelization.
Yeah.
So they're a little, plus also it's the title page, so it's a little more specific and unique.
Right.
So I usually charge 100 for those because they're rare, as opposed to the novel. There's dozens of pages mentioning every character.
That's a wonderful idea. Now, if people wanted to get a hold of you before the show, because you're going to be at WonderCon and then at Celebration as well, how do they contact you to say, hey, I think I want to commission or make a request for one of these? I don't know if you have time to do that, but I mean, just a thought. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
They could get hold of me through my Facebook page, William O'Neill, Gentleman Nerd.
Excellent.
And also I have a DeviantArt page, which is also gentlemannerd.deviantart.com. So I'm pretty sure you can contact me there, or again, just straight through my Facebook page.
Awesome.
Yeah.
William, it's been fantastic talking to you today, and the artwork looks wonderful. I'm excited to see it, and I mean, it's such an exciting time to be back at Star Wars for the 40th anniversary. This is William's fifth time at the show with Star Wars for Luck. William O'Neill, limited edition, 250 pieces. You can pre-order it now on Dark Ink Art. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Spencer Brinkerhoff III, and this is Studios B3. Is there anything else that you'd like to add as we sign out here?
Other than thanks for fitting me into your schedule and interviewing me. I had a great time.
You betcha.
Check me out at both shows. If you guys can't make Celebration,
right,
hit me up at WonderCon, even just to say hi. Even
it's
if you
WonderCon
want.
First, right?
Yeah, WonderCon's at the end of this month, and then Celebration in April.
Awesome. William, thanks for talking with us today. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.